Hi, I'm Grace Girk, former emergency room nurse turned physician associate and mom to 5 active boys, equipping moms with tools for wholehearted living. Welcome to Skills for Moms. Hi, Robin. Welcome to the Skills for Moms podcast. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I just want to spend a couple minutes introducing you to our audience. So, Robin has been a dear friend of mine for about 13 years now. She is a Texas native, a wife, a mom of 6. She's also a homeschool educator and a business owner. She owns a business called Home Matters, which is based in East Texas. She founded it with her friend Maria, who is now doing mission work over in Africa, because they have a shared vision to promote the truth that every home matters. And
Yes.
so she is able to use, you are able to use your professional knowledge of organization as well as your background as a mother to really equip and empower women in their homes to deal with some of those challenges they may have and find good solutions for them. So thank you for
Yes.
being here.
Of course.
Yeah. So just to get us started, I know you guys, your kids were in my wedding. We had my husband, before we were married, lived in your back house. But could you give us a little background on your family and where you guys are today?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to talk to
Yeah.
you. This time it's just being recorded.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, I've been married in January for 25 years. We actually just celebrated
Wow.
25 years in December, and we took a big trip to celebrate, and it was super special. We have 6 kids. They range from 20 down to 6 years old. Our oldest is in college. She's a senior. And then we have an 18-year-old who's a freshman in college. We have a 16-year-old who's a junior in high school, 13-year-old who's in 7th grade, a 10-year-old who's in 4th grade, and a 6-year-old who's in 1st grade. So I heard somebody say the other day that it's a very special stage because we're dealing with math facts and menopause. And that really resonated with me as it just sort of encapsulates the challenge of the stage. But it's a really, really fun stage and challenging but meaningful. So um, we do homeschool the youngest 4 still,
Mhm.
but we've done different things over the years. They have been in private schools, they've been in co-ops, and I'm always one who says that homeschooling is not for everybody, but it has been a lovely fit for us at different stages of our lives and definitely allows for some flexibility and more travel and things like that, which we like to try to embrace.
Yeah. Yeah, I know right now in my family, we are currently homeschooling, but I've always felt supported by you that, we've in a similar way. We've been at a private school, we have done homeschool, we have not done public yet, but I feel like you've done a great job of supporting me along that journey, that there's not necessarily one size fits
Right.
all, and you really have to kind of each year look at what those needs are with your family and kind of reevaluate. So that
Yes,
resonates with me
100%.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just kind of on a little more lighthearted note, we have a lot of fond memories being with you guys and spending time with your family. Any kind of funny story or something that comes to mind with your kids, recent or in the past, of
Um,
just kind of a little family story?
yes, I mean, I think it's important to keep the humor in parenting, 100%. You've got to be able to laugh at your kids, but also with them and about your
Mhm.
family. I think it's really it's a special thing. And a couple of our kids have a hard time laughing at themselves, and others of them are more than happy to laugh at themselves. You got to keep the laughter
Yes.
going for sure.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Yeah, we haven't always been consistent with like children's scrapbooks, but we do have kind of a journal for each child. And a lot of
Oh.
it is just funny quotes, and of course, the first child has probably the most things documented, but, just some of those one liners you really can't,
Yes. The
you
other
can't
thing
pass
that
them up.
really cracks me up about Louisa, the youngest, is that because she's almost 4 years younger than her
Mhm.
next sibling. She wants
Mhm.
to do all those things that the older siblings are
Uh-huh.
doing, and she's not really ready for them yet, but we've tried to, accommodate her to the extent that we
Yes.
can. And so one of the things that she's wanted to do very early was have roller skates and roller
Uh-huh.
blades. And we
Yes.
didn't always feel like that was the safest decision, so we would give her, like,
Yes.
one roller skate, one roller
Uh-huh.
bla and then she would figure out a way to, with a pole or with her
Uh-huh.
old crazy coupe car, like, push that thing with one roller skate or one
Uh-huh.
rollerblade, and it's hilarious to watch, and she's really
Yes.
gotten quite proficient at all things riding, everything with wheels, by
Uh-huh.
doing it one skate or
With
one
one.
rollerblade at a time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, Robin, I've always really admired about you is just you were our inspiration early before we were even married of wow, you can have a big family and there will be chaotic moments, but you can have peace in your and order in your home. And I feel like you
Mhm.
have modeled that not just, in the one front showroom, but I mean, I could go into one of your kids' closets and it would be orderly, which probably most people in America cannot say that. But could you just touch a little bit more on how you've established some of those rhythms and patterns in your home that help you guys to have peace?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I really like to think of this in sort of concentric circles,
Mhm.
and if you're starting with your daily routines or your daily rhythms,
Mhm.
and then kind of working out to your weekly routines and your
Mhm.
monthly routines and your annual or yearly routines or rhythms, that's really helpful to me. About the house, I have to say that my husband and I both function way better with fewer things.
Yeah.
And that idea that less is more really
Mhm.
does resonate with us. And so when you have a lot of kids, if you're not very vigilant and very careful, you will be inundated with things, whether or not
Yes.
you homeschool, they're going to just
Uh-huh.
attract stuff. And
Stuff
so
magnets.
yes, for sure. And so I think being aware of that and understanding from the
Mhm.
very beginning that with children comes things and you sort of need a process for dealing with that can be helpful, in those
Mhm.
early years. And I'm just like anybody else. It's hard for me to let go of things, especially things that are sentimental. But when
Mhm.
we moved into the house you knew us at in Dallas,
Mhm.
I realized I didn't want to handle all this stuff. I didn't want to
Mm.
manage all this stuff that was just taking up room and taking up
Mm.
energy. And that's really when
Yeah.
I sort of started embracing the idea of less is more. And I
Yeah.
got rid of grad school notebooks, and
Yeah.
things that I had been hauling around from place to place
Mhm.
and thought, no, I don't need this. And
Yeah.
and the to me, one of the secrets is that once you let go of something, you've done the hard part. Like it gets easier
Mm.
from there. It's just that
Yeah.
moment when you decide to part with it that's hard. After
Yeah.
that, there's so much freedom in that. But as far as routines and rhythms go, I think if you any individual out there who wants to kind of take a more strategic approach to creating a
Mhm.
peaceful home, if you think in terms of, okay, what do I do on a daily basis to promote peace in my
Mhm.
home? What do I do on
Yeah.
a weekly basis, monthly, yearly? So in the daily basis, personally, I try to start my day with a quiet time, a time that's a
Yeah.
little bit by myself, set aside.
Mhm.
That's when I pray. That's when I read my Bible. That's when I
Mhm.
plan my day.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a long, real in-depth time. And
Yeah.
for some of your listeners who have little babies, there's no way that's happening,
Yeah.
first thing in the morning. But whenever it is, I heard somebody describe it as, you start your morning with maybe just a little sprinkling of
Mhm.
quiet time, of being in the word,
Yeah.
of praying. And then maybe you get a little bit longer drink of water in the afternoon when
Mm.
children
Yeah.
and babies are quiet. And then again at night, you water yourself
Yeah.
again with that refreshment. that really,
Yeah.
helped me to think of it as it's not just like 1 hour in the morning. And if you don't get that in, you don't have a chance to talk to the Lord or be in his
Mhm.
word. No,
Yeah.
you're going to need to fit it in. But I think that's an important daily practice. The other thing that in our family we've tried to promote on a daily basis is family meals, eating
Mm.
together.
Yes.
And when they're little, it's easier than when they get bigger and they have all their
Mhm.
activities and they're driving
Yeah.
everywhere. But that, and I've seen that happen in our own home, it gets more challenging. But that
Mhm.
is something that we tried to put a priority on a daily basis, was eating together
Mhm.
and looking at each other in the eye and asking
Yeah.
about each other's days and things like that.
Yeah, those are so good. I mean, when you were first touching on the home environment and all the choices we have to make every day, I was joking
Mhm.
with my oldest son in a grocery store saying there used to be, 3 or 4 choices of cereal and now there's 15 choices of Cheerios alone, and so
Right.
what you're describing about, limiting maybe the toys or getting rid of something from your past that you're really not using and you're not attached to, you're freeing up your kind of like your mind and yourself to have more time, I would say.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really good revelation to have.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, as far as kids are concerned, a lot of us have probably read that actually having fewer toys promotes creativity. And
Yes,
I've
yeah.
seen this happen, you
Mhm.
now that my oldest kids are 20 and 18 and 16, I just think back to what toys did they love? And it wasn't
Mhm.
toys. It wasn't toys. It was dress up
Mhm.
clothes and
Yeah.
blocks. There were
Yes.
blocks. There were lots of blocks. Um, and little people that they could have pretend play. But really, if you just have
Mhm.
a couple of options, it's
Yeah.
more than enough to let their brains you know, just play with those things. And
Yeah.
the idea that we need educational toys or manipulatives, I really just think
Mhm.
is totally driven by the market. It's not
Yeah.
driven by research.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's
And
such a good oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say the other thing is, books, just creating
Yeah.
a family culture of reading for the kids
Mhm.
to see their parents reading, for
Yes.
you to read aloud to them, for them to
Mhm.
begin to just think of books as a window into another world. Um, that those are things that we do have a lot of.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's a good sign if you're having to tell your child they can't read like they see it like candy or TV. You're like, "Well, I guess this is a better choice, right?"
Definitely, yes.
um, yeah, and I love what you touched on too with just time in the word or, quiet time on your own in the mornings. I think it's easy to put pressure that that has to be this long 30, 45-minute
Right.
period, but what you're kind of touching on is it could be just a couple of moments and then
Mhm.
being intentional from that point maybe throughout the day to revisit, a psalm that you read that morning or a worship song that was meaningful, something like that. Um,
Definitely, definitely.
yeah.
I love, the book Hello Mornings by Kat Lee, and
Mhm.
she has also a podcast that is literally like 3 minutes long,
Wow.
and most days I listen to that, and her 3-minute
Mm.
morning is, reciting a scripture that's really a
Mhm.
prayer, and then
Yeah.
taking a look at your planner, your
Mhm.
intentions for the day, and then
Mhm.
taking some deep breaths. And I mean, that is
Mm.
a great way to just set your intention
Wow.
for the day, the kind of, mom you want to be that day, and
Yes.
going from there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I also talk about the concentric circles in
Yes.
the weekly rhythm. I think that
Mhm.
moms that are in really any stage, but if you take a look at what you do on a weekly basis, that can be
Mhm.
helpful too, whether it's in the home,
Yeah.
establishing peace in the home and making sure that on a weekly basis you're doing some of the cleaning tasks that are
Mhm.
important to keeping a home looking and feeling good. But also just
Yeah.
relationally, this is when I
Yeah.
thought about the fact that Jim and I have been very intentional to have date nights over the years.
Yeah.
And really, it started when Clara, our oldest, was about 10, because we felt like we
Mhm.
could leave her in charge for about
Mm.
an hour and a half, and go about a mile away. That was when we were walking distance to lots of great restaurants. And we
Mhm.
would leave one of our phones with her, and we would go have date night. And so we've been
Mhm.
doing that for about 10 years now. And now, we can go much farther away, and
Yes.
our 16-year-old can be left in charge. But I am routinely surprised by the number of couples who don't have a rhythm like that to their week.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a date night. Maybe it could be
Mhm.
getting coffee every Saturday morning. Or I saw
Mhm.
online the other day a friend of mine and her husband work out every Sunday afternoon together.
Uh-huh.
Like, whatever your weekly thing is to stay connected to your spouse,
Yes.
that is so vital in life. I mean,
Yeah.
especially as your kids get older, you
Yeah.
will need each other. I mean, you need each other
Yeah.
now in the baby
Yes.
stage and the toddler stage. You need each other,
Mhm.
but you need to have your husband as your teammate in the
Mhm.
teen and young adult years more
Yeah.
than any other time,
Wow.
because the problems get and the challenges get more important, and you
Mhm.
have to
Yeah.
be able to communicate about that and
Yeah.
problem solve and strategize together. And if you're not at a place where you can communicate freely and well, that will
Mhm.
be harder. So I think
Yeah.
at least weekly, having a time when you are spending intentional time with your spouse from the early ages
Yeah.
on is just, you can't underestimate the power of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. I don't think I've even told you this, but we've started having a babysitter come over when we're still at the home. So it's, a younger girl who you don't have to pay maybe quite as much
Right.
as, a full time nanny type person. And just to have someone with our kids, take them to the park, read books, pack their school lunches. And then Joseph and I have been able to use that afternoon to take a nap together,
Mhm.
connect, and then
Mhm.
also do kind of our logistical planning. Like, we need to update our will. We need to
Right.
look at where we're going to be living next, or
Right.
what's going on
Right.
this week for the menu, and just the little things, but also the big things. And,
Yeah.
when you have five little people who have needs, it's hard to have those kind of conversations. So thank you for that
Oh,
insight.
no,
Um,
100%.
yeah. And um, switching gears a little bit, I know you mentioned the Hello Mornings. What other
Mhm.
resources have really helped you navigate some of these flows that you've developed with your family? Just so we can point
Mhm.
our listeners to some of those.
Well, I'm a huge proponent of getting rid of clutter. And so
Hmm.
I've really enjoyed The Minimal Mom, Dawn
Hmm.
Madsen. She has a
Okay.
podcast. She also has a workbook. But
Okay.
she's fantastic for moms, specifically for
Okay.
moms. And she became a minimalist, but I think some people are sometimes scared by that word.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not removing everything from your home and only having white walls
Yes.
and all of that. It's more
Uh-huh.
about making room for what matters to you and your family by
Yes.
removing the excess. So she's fantastic for that.
Yeah.
I also really like Dana K. White. Dana K. White
Okay.
had
Yeah.
a blog called A Slob Comes Clean that was
Hmm.
anonymous for
Uh-huh.
portion of time before she sort of came out of the closet and said, "Oh, that's actually me."
Yeah.
And then she wrote several terrific books. Um, Decluttering at the Speed of Life is
Hmm.
one, and How to Keep House Without Losing Your Mind is another one. And
Hmm.
then recently, I have been promoting another book that was written by a licensed counselor, and that one was called How to Keep House Without. Actually, I may be getting those titles confused.
Yes.
Dana K. White has written one similar to How to
Hmm.
Keep House Without Losing Your Mind, or How to Manage.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is, like, you're stressed out,
Yeah.
but your house is a big part of that puzzle.
Yeah.
And I really think that it's a two-sided, coin.
Mm.
Sometimes you don't know which one happened first, your stressed out or the
Mhm.
messy house.
Yeah.
Whichever one of those you want to focus on, it's great, but I am the person who can help you with the house aspect of it that
Yes.
actually does serve to de-stress you. And then you can
Yes.
work on the other areas of life that
Uh-huh.
are, problematic for you. But, it's
Yes.
been proven time and time again that people, their cortisol levels go up in a
Yeah.
cluttered space, regardless of
Mhm.
your personality type. So
Yeah.
it can be very helpful, even if you're dealing with serious mental or emotional issues, to clear your space, to really work
Yeah.
on your space. And
Mhm.
sometimes that really requires that somebody come help you
Yeah.
because it is overwhelming and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of decisions. And I
Yeah.
definitely do not minimize that. But I also don't want to minimize the impact a cleaner, tidier space can have on your
Yeah.
outlook. So
Yeah.
those are some of the resources I've used. I love the Hello Mornings book. And
Yes.
in the homeschooling world, I love Sarah McKenzie. Sarah McKenzie has a
Mhm.
podcast. She has a couple of books. She has a book called Teaching from Rest that is
Yes.
just fantastic. I don't know if you've read that one, but
I
it is
have. I think
small. Okay.
twice now. Yes, it seems like
Awesome.
kind of a one of those annual read for homeschool moms to not
Yes.
feel like you have to do it all.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I heard somebody say one time, it's true you can have it all, but you cannot have it all at one time.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think keeping that in mind is really essential for moms too, because there's so many things we want to do well. We want to school our
Yeah.
children well or parent them well. We want to have a nice home. We want our relationships to be strong. There's so many things that we can work
Yes.
on. Um, but it's not all going to look amazing all at the same time. Things
Mhm.
will ebb and flow. We have to be comfortable with some just variability in some of those categories, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, even just I think I don't give myself enough grace like you just had a baby or one of your
Yes.
kids is recently potty trained or going through, a transition time that okay, I need to put the brakes on some of those maybe tasks I wanted to do and just give myself more of that white space um, to do those things, not
Right.
cram them in.
Right.
Um, I was just, I know you've mentioned um, being able to help people in their homes. Could you just share a
Mhm.
little bit more about Home Matters, what you offer? I know we personally have benefited from you giving us some coaching, and we could use
Mhm.
probably a lot more as well, but just some of what you can offer women who are listening.
Sure. Yes, Home Matters is just, has been such a blessing in my life. My friend, my, colleague, Maria, continues to be a support to me, both personally and professionally, even from Africa. So it
Wow.
was definitely a joint effort when we created this thing. But now, what I'm able to offer is several different things. One is in home sessions, where
Hmm.
I come and I have colleagues who work with me now. So we come as a two-person team and
Hmm.
we can spend 3 or 4 hours in your home helping you accomplish whatever goals it is that you have,
Hmm.
making progress in some area. We've done all kinds of things from pantries to playrooms and everything in between. We've helped people move, we've helped people unpack, really whatever it is that is going to help you get to that level of peace that you're after.
Hmm.
And then I also have done phone consultations with people, just virtual consultations, which we
Yeah.
can use FaceTime or use Zoom in those situations as well. And then in around where I am, about within about an hour radius of where I live, I'm able to offer in-person consultations,
Yeah.
which looks a lot like home coaching.
Yeah.
I had one a week or two ago with a client who I went to her home. She's showing me the different areas that need
Hmm.
attention, and I'm troubleshooting, asking her questions, figuring out, how her family works, what's going to work
Yeah.
for them. And that is so much fun. Just really,
Yeah.
meeting people where they are and saying, okay,
Hmm.
well, how does your family come in from the car? And how can we
Yeah.
arrange things to where that is less stressful? Or, well, let's
Hmm.
talk through menu planning because
Yeah.
this is something that is stressing you out, how to eat well, or how to
Mhm.
minimize the time you're having to spend in the kitchen because you have a newborn or whatever the things are. I just love, getting to be real personal with people because there's not a one size fits all. I mean, there
Yeah.
may be some generalizations that would help most
Mhm.
people, but when it comes down to it, every family is so unique. Every marriage that I encounter is so unique. What the husband does for a living, what the wife does, how old the kids are, what their
Mhm.
schooling situation is.
Yes.
Everything is so unique. And I just love that. So yeah, I can help people who are in other states. I can help people who are in my area. And to actually go into your home, you need to be within about an hour of where I live. But you can reach out to me and on our website or via email, and I'm happy to start that conversation.
Yeah, and we'll include that information on our show notes. She's out here in East Texas, same with Skills for Moms, and so we will include that information. And if you mention this podcast as a way of finding Robin, she can give you a discount on some of her services. And I just wanted to highlight on a personal basis, even though I really admire you from the tangible home organization perspective, I'm kind of wired that way too. I love Container Store and Alpha Shelving and things to be all in a row. I feel like you also are able to help, like you were mentioning, the meal planning or figuring out what's the hiccup in someone's weekly flow.
Mhm.
Those have been the areas where I'm trying to organize my home space, and I feel like I do have that knack, if you will. But then sometimes just having an outside perspective on some of the other pain points that could be going on. We really want to have a date night. We don't know how to do that. We
Right,
have a limited
right.
budget, or, for a period of time, I was working part time as a PA, but my days alternated. One week I'm working Monday, Friday, the next week, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so it's
Mhm.
hard for a kid to have that routine or rhythm if mom's gone from the house different days each
Right.
week, even if she's home too. And so I remember talking through with you some things we could do, kind of with our wake up and going to bed routine that could kind of help, even though it didn't make it perfect, it kind of
Mhm.
improved some of those hard feelings we were having in that season.
Yeah.
So I just want to
I think
highlight that as well.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think, the fact that I have so many kids and that they are in these ages does position me to be able to speak to a lot of the things that moms
Yeah.
of young kids are dealing with. And you can learn from my successes and my mistakes. I have a client right now who is, transitioning her kids into the same room in order
Mm.
to help them sleep better. And so just
Mhm.
walking with her through that and
Yeah.
helping her arrange the space, but also giving
Mhm.
her the parental support that
Yeah.
it is important that, your kids learn to sleep on their own. That's important for them, not only as
Mhm.
individuals, but you guys as a
Yeah.
family. And another
Mhm.
thing that I wanted to mention is that many times people reach out to Home Matters because they want to feel more comfortable having people in their homes.
Mm.
When it's untidy or when
Yeah.
it doesn't feel peaceful, there is a barrier to their
Yeah.
ability to be hospitable.
Yes.
And I think that, um, given that goal of so many people, I'm going to share this acronym that I created to
Yeah.
help people when they're trying to be hospitable. And the acronym is GUEST, G-U-E-S-T. So when you're
Okay.
thinking about having people in your home, whether it's for an informal or for a formal gathering, I think
Mhm.
this could be helpful. So the first one, the G, is to greet people with warmth,
Mm.
welcome people
Yeah.
well by
Mhm.
being at the door and asking them if they'd like you to take their coat or their purse,
Yeah.
or showing them
Mhm.
into the home if they've never been there
Yeah.
before, hugging them if that's appropriate, or just greeting them with a smile.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
G. And then the
Mhm.
U is understanding what hospitality is supposed to be
Yeah.
about,
Mm.
which in my mind, it's to bless other people. At the root of it, you are just trying to bless somebody else, whether it's a close
Yeah.
friend or somebody you've never met.
Mhm.
You are bringing them into your space to bless them.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're having people over, because It will help you not get fixated on, oh, the wallpaper in that bedroom looks
Yes.
terrible, or I should have
Mhm.
changed that towel, or whatever the little
Mhm.
thing might be. No, the point is to bless somebody else.
Yeah.
And then the E is for essentials. What are the
Mhm.
essentials of this gathering?
Yeah.
And I was thinking in terms of like, are you going to be eating something? Are you going to be drinking
Mhm.
something? Are you gonna, is it a play date? What are the essentials about this gathering?
Mhm.
Think through that ahead of
Yeah.
time. A little planning or a little prep can be nice.
Mhm.
The other day I had a couple of friends over and I was just planning to offer tea or coffee. But at the
Yeah.
last minute, I decided to go ahead and put on some wassail, which is a recipe my mother-in-law
Mhm.
passed down to me. And that was such a hit. It was such a hit. They didn't
Mhm.
want the tea, they didn't want the coffee, they wanted the wassail, and I thought, well, that was a happy accident. I hadn't really planned for that. But if it could
Mhm.
be something a little special that they don't normally get, that's just icing on the
Yeah.
cake. But
Yeah.
really, you could just offer them a glass of water, and that shows that you are thinking about them and their comfort
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
time. And then the S is for setting boundaries. And I was
Mm.
giggling as I was thinking about that because it's not just about like what time do you need people to leave by.
Yeah.
Although if you have an introverted spouse, that will be important to figure
Yes,
out,
important
okay,
thing.
when people will be, leaving. But also, what are the boundaries that you have in your home? I know for us, we
Mm.
tell our kids all the time, there's no running and there's no yelling. There's no running and
Mhm.
there's no yelling in the house. That is
Yeah.
not true for everybody, and that is
Yeah.
everybody's own decision. We
Mhm.
have friends who let their kids jump all over their couches, and my kids love being at their house because they
Yep.
let them do that. But in our home, we don't do that, and so I sometimes
Uh-huh.
have to make sure that those
Yep.
boundaries are, communicated in a nice
Yes.
way. But
Mhm.
anyway, setting your boundaries ahead of time, like how long you're gonna, be comfortable with people staying, and then saying
Mhm.
something like, "Thank you so much for coming. I hope we can do this again soon." Somehow signaling that
Yeah.
if it's getting past
Mhm.
the time you're comfortable with. And then
Yes.
finally, the T is for tidy with intention.
Mm.
Because if you're gonna have somebody over tomorrow, you probably don't have time to overhaul your whole house, nor
Yes.
should you. But you can use Dana K. White's visibility rule,
Mhm.
which she
Yeah.
says, you just open the door as if you're coming in as a guest. What areas will you see or use
Notice.
first?
Mhm.
That's your priority. So maybe
Yeah.
that acronym can help any of your listeners who are wanting to be more hospitable and just need maybe some ideas on how to get started.
Wow. That is so good. That really hits home. I think growing up, we didn't do as much hosting for large gatherings, and so it's something as an adult I'm realized I didn't practice routinely growing up, and so it is does feel harder for me. And I love
Hmm.
the feeling of being hosted well by someone else, but then how do I mirror that and be able to host someone and make them feel welcome in my space? You've already touched on some of those, but it comes to mind. You recently had us over along with several other large families, and you do that, almost at least annually with us, and I know you do that with other people. Could you just share a little bit more about some of those practices you've just built in with your kids to make
Mhm.
hosting not totally overwhelming, where there's been
Yeah.
days where I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And then a week later, I'm like, okay, it's fine. We can host again. But right
Yeah.
after I'm like, no, never again.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, and it definitely depends on who your guests are too, right? There's
Yes.
some guests that you would have over anytime they would show up, you'd be thrilled to
Hmm.
have them, and others that
Yes.
you're like, "I need time to recover before we do
More
that again."
challenging. Yes.
Yes. Um, but yeah, we've tried to help our kids see hospitality as a team effort so that it doesn't
Hmm.
just fall to my husband and me. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of prep that they can help with at this point,
Hmm.
but I realize a lot of people may have children that are too small to really help. And then you just
Yeah.
need to adjust your expectations for what you can
Hmm.
do in this season. You shouldn't
Yeah.
expect that you will be able to host a big holiday gathering if you've got a newborn and a 2-year-old or
Yeah.
whatever, 4 or 5
Yeah.
little kids.
Yeah.
It's totally fine to let somebody else take up that mantle. But
Hmm.
I'm in a season now where it's much easier to host. And in fact, our
Yeah.
kids really enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I I don't hold to this mantra 100%, but I do think we should encourage our kids to do as much of the things that they can do by
Mm,
themselves.
yeah.
And so, we have kids who can wash dishes. We have kids who can
Yeah.
cook. We have kids who can check the bathrooms. We have kids who can pick up
Mhm.
toys. And so,
Yeah.
fostering that idea of like, this is a team effort. We're all getting to
Yeah.
have these friends over. We're all getting to
Mhm.
have fun with these friends. And so, we're all going to help prepare and we're all going to clean up afterwards.
Yeah.
There's a resetting that happens.
Yeah.
And that gets into the home organization aspect of it. But I do think, when you as the parent and you guys as a couple can establish what resetting is, what it looks
Mhm.
like, and then
Yeah.
you bring your kids alongside you to help you get it back to that point, either
Mhm.
before the guests come or after the guests
Yeah.
have left, it starts to take on like an energy and just a standard of its own that's pretty easy
Yeah.
to implement. It's work,
Mhm.
but it's pretty easy to
Yes.
implement, you know. And I think as a type A person, a recovering perfectionist myself, I have to get okay with people bringing things to
Yeah.
my event, but
Mhm.
it's really not my event, right? It's
Mm.
everyone's experience. And
Yeah.
so it's actually a lot of fun for them to bring a salad or these people
Yeah.
bring drinks or, for
Yeah.
certain gatherings. And that takes a little bit of load off of you and they feel more involved and needed as well.
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah, so to kind of you can bring your kids in and streamline like this is what we do to reset the living room or this is how we
Hmm.
set a table and those are basic life skills a kid should develop over time anyways
Yeah.
and then letting people know your needs like we
Hmm.
found out recently a friend from church we're kind of me and a friend are going to throw a last minute baby shower for her and it's 2 weeks away and I was like okay here we go but it's like I want to bless this new mom and that's important I think to do and so we're not going to probably do it the maximum effort. There probably will not be a balloon arch, like
Right.
we're not going to
Right.
have like a custom made cake at this event. But I'm like, okay, how can we still honor this new mom in a way
Yes.
that will be meaningful and not take away from, the normal family things I need to do as well? Kind of that
Right.
balance, if you will.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's so much better to do something sweet and kind than it is to do something perfect or Pinterest worthy,
Mm,
It's
yeah.
it's really the thought behind it that
Yeah.
matters. And there have been seasons in which we were having people over routinely. We would be
Hmm.
in a community
Yeah.
group at church and it was almost weekly that we would have
Yeah.
a sizable group in our home, but
Yeah.
seasons change too, and now I'm in
Hmm.
this place of where it's more like I'll have one friend over with a child or two to play with
Hmm.
my youngest.
Yeah.
That's a different way to be hospitable, and I really
Yeah.
enjoy it. Um,
Yeah.
and then there's a lot of our older kids having their friends over, and that's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
That's a different way to be hospitable, and I'm
Mhm.
learning. I'm not perfect at
Yeah.
that because, the kids, they want to feel welcome, but they also want their
Mhm.
space. So
Mhm.
just learning and growing with each new stage is so fun.
Yeah.
And I think that you've got the answer when you're saying, I just want her to feel blessed and I want her to
Mm.
feel um supported in this new stage. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's where it's at. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what your house looks like. It really just matters, the heart that's behind it.
Mhm. Yeah, that is so good, and I know I mean, having a family with 6 kids, that's just between you all 8 birthdays a year, and so I assume you can't do a big blowout birthday thing every year for every kid, but I assume you still do celebrate birthdays and important, like,
Mhm.
holidays and anniversaries, like, how do you kind
Yeah.
of choose, I guess, what ones to really highlight, say a graduation or a certain number, and which
Mhm.
ones, you're just maybe doing something more simple like a cake
Yeah.
or, you know
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really think that that is probably super specific to each family, what makes sense to them.
Yeah.
Um, and our little traditions have evolved over the years, sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. Um, I guess kind of the big one that we've done, and I would say, just like hospitality, I think that birthday celebrations and holiday celebrations, it's essential that you keep the meaning there. And
Mhm.
I remember somebody giving me the advice early on, enjoy your child's birthdays, whether you have a
Mm.
party or not.
Yeah.
Enjoy your child on
Yeah.
that day and
Yes.
make your child feel loved and supported and
Yes.
encouraged. And
Mhm.
I love that. And so
That's so
that's
good.
I try to keep that as the heart behind the celebrations that
Yeah.
we have. We ended up sort of in a backwards way making a big deal out of our kids' 10th birthdays.
Okay.
So when each kid turns 10, I get to take him or her to Boston. And
Aw.
10 is just such a fun age. They still think their
Yes.
parents are cool. They can do
Yes.
a lot of things by themselves.
Mhm.
They are still loving learning, for the sake of
Uh-huh.
learning. And so Boston
Yes.
just is a great city to explore and learn all kinds of American history and stuff.
Yeah.
So we've done that with, let's see, no, four of the
Mhm.
kids so far. I get to go again this
Okay.
year with Francis.
Wow.
Um, so that's become a thing. That's when I let the girls
Yeah.
get their ears pierced. We
Aw.
kind of make a big deal out of 12. I take the girls on a little weekend away, and that's when we talk
Mhm.
about all the things, friendships and
Yes.
boys and how
Yes.
babies are made and all the things. And then 16 has been a big year for the girls. At least we've made
Mhm.
a fun dance thing out of that. And then, I Clara is going to be 21 in May, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I want to do something fun and
Yes.
exciting. But the main thing is I want to be with her because, she's in
Yeah.
another state, so I'm figuring out a
Uh-huh.
way to get to her on her birthday. But,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be expensive. I think you
Mhm.
just want to make them feel special. And
Yes.
one of the easiest, cheapest things we do is that on the kids' birthdays, and usually on Valentine's Day and on Mother's Day and on Father's Day, we go around the table and everybody says something nice or something encouraging about that person.
Mm.
I'm
Wow.
going to get teary thinking about it
Oh.
because the kids have said some of the sweetest things at those
Wow.
very simple times. And it'll
Wow.
be, like Eliza's birthday, and all her siblings are going around telling something that they love about her, something they
Wow.
see in her and
Yeah.
easy, but it's really
Yes.
meaningful, and I really love
Yeah.
Mother's Day for that. They go
Wow.
around and tell me
Yeah.
what I'm doing well. So, just little things like that that evolve over time that make your family
Yeah.
unique, lean into them.
Yes.
If you
Yeah.
start seeing a pattern like, "Hey, we're good at whatever," just go with
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, like those traditions, you could call them because they're repetitive things that bring
Mhm.
meaning, you know, when it's helpful and blessing, like keep doing them. But if there's
Yes,
something that, it worked really well, but now you're doing it just because, maybe you can take a year off and just see what
for sure.
happens. We're really wanting to be more intentional with the building each other up. We're realizing if we don't practice that with each other, it's going to be way harder to encourage the kid on the playground who
Yeah,
maybe rubs you the wrong way. And
yeah.
so we try to practice, we call it Shabbat, but just taking a
Mhm.
day of rest. We've done it more like on Saturdays and Friday nights, the
Mhm.
way the Jewish calendar is, even though we're not Jewish. But just having a specific time to bless our kids, it could be like a simple blessing from the Bible, or, Caleb, I really saw that,
Mm,
you're a great leader this week, and this is how I
yeah.
saw it. Or for a brother to be able to say, like, man, you're very generous, and just to have
Yes.
it built in that our kids have this time that they're anticipating and knowing they're going to receive blessing.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know every family so unique, but that's something that I put on kind of my New Year's resolution for this year, to be
Mhm.
intentional about, okay, weekly I really want to do that as a family, even if it's just around the table. We'd try to do it a separate time and then we'd forget. So I was like, well, I know we're going to be at dinner, so we can take 5 minutes at dinner to do that.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
that's lovely,
so
and they will
yeah.
always remember that. They will always remember that. That will become just part of who they are, and I think
Hmm.
you putting putting an emphasis on it, even if it's like once a week, officially, it is
Yeah.
setting your mind to seeing the good in them and calling
Yes.
that out in
Yes.
them, whatever day of the week it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how those small changes we make, just once a week or like it then changes, like you're saying, our perspective. And then all these other
Mhm.
things could start to come into place just from that one small change, like
Right.
the cleaning up your home, like having a clear space for the kids to play could improve how they're relating to each other or less
Yeah.
destruction. Because if it's too chaotic, they may be more prone to fight or just break up toys if they're
Right.
not facilitating that imaginative play that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
man, that's so good. Well, I guess just in closing, a couple more questions. Is there anything you can think of, just if you were to look back on yourself 10 years ago, like that you would give us younger moms just as advice in the thick of it? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, two things, Grace. One is the idea that less is more. Like if you could
Mm,
just really own it,
yeah.
less is more, fewer things, but also fewer activities,
Yeah.
just fewer busy days
Yeah.
will expand your ability to enjoy this season of life,
Mm,
just creating white space in your calendar, even if you have
yeah.
to block it off and say, on this day, we're
Hmm.
not going to do any outside activities, and just be
Yeah.
home and just have it be a normal, lovely day.
Yeah.
That's one thing I would probably do more of. The other thing is really just giving grace to yourself, giving grace to
Hmm.
yourself, knowing that you are trying, and that is a huge win. I listened to a podcast this morning where Max Lucado was saying, you know, if you are trying, that shows you're a good parent already. Like, just
Mm,
don't beat
yeah.
yourself up. So give yourself grace. Give your
Yes.
spouse a lot of grace. Like, love your
Hmm.
spouse well. Like you were saying, calling out those good qualities in your kids.
Hmm.
Do that to your husband or to your
Yeah.
wife. Do that to your husband in
Yeah.
front of your kids. Tell him what
Mhm.
he is doing well or what you're seeing
Yes,
in him. Establishing that culture of grace and that culture of
yes.
positivity, I think, is so sweet. And, give grace to your kids. They're not going to be
Yeah.
perfect. They are going to mess up. They are going to be rude. They are going to be selfish,
Mhm.
but give grace to them. Try to model uh,
Mhm.
the things that you want to see in them,
Yeah.
and give grace to your friends. I have a really good
Mhm.
friend here who has taught me that, your friends are not always going to make the decisions that you would make. Your
Mhm.
friends are going to mess up, just like we mess
Mhm.
up. But giving them grace and loving them through that, I think that that is something I would tell myself 10 years ago. Work on that. Do
Yeah.
that better. Love
Yeah.
with no strings attached,
Yeah.
no hook required, or whatever.
Yes.
Um, I think that's probably what I would tell myself, because it would mean more calm, more peace,
Yeah.
um, for my home, for my kids, for my marriage, to really
Yeah.
give grace more abundantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's such a good reminder because, we hear it in our kids where they'll repeat or parrot a way we parented our kids. And it's convicting to be like, oh, I didn't realize I snapped so easily, or I don't realize how critical I can be. And
Right.
so they really can be kind of
Yes.
a reflection to things that we can just slow down and work on, and giving people, like
Mhm.
you say, the benefit of the doubt, and
Mhm.
just those kind words to our spouse, bringing up all
Yeah.
the things they are doing well, because of course we all have areas to grow in. And I know
Right.
with my husband and I, we have a lot of my strengths are his weaknesses and vice versa. And so it's easy to
Right.
poke at the things that I'm naturally strong at versus to really notice and encourage the things that he does so well that I'm
Right.
lacking in. So, yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you just wanted to share in closing, something we haven't touched on today or something you just
Mhm.
wanted to like give a little extra info about? We'll definitely include your information in the show notes, and then the
Mhm.
resources you mentioned so people can check those out after they're done listening to this podcast.
Sure. One just very practical tip that I would just offer your listeners that they could do today is
Yeah.
to establish an area where you are going to put all the things that you are donating or getting rid of that is going
Mm,
out of your
yeah.
house. I
Mhm.
think if you can just take a minute to go, that's going to be in my laundry room, or it's going to be on this
Yeah.
shelf in the garage, or wherever that is,
Mhm.
to establish a routine of getting things out of your house.
Yes.
That is sort of something I talk to my clients about every
Mhm.
single time I go into somebody's home is how are you moving things out on a routine basis? So
Mhm.
in my own home, I have it in my laundry room. I have these baskets lined with a dark trash bag. And when
Mhm.
I find something that needs to be donated, it goes in there and nobody can see it. If the kids
Mhm.
ask for it, I'm happy to get it out. But I'm telling you, I have not ever had that happen. There has never been a time where the kids are like, what happened to such and such? Did you donate it? It just hasn't happened. Once it's gone, they have forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Not every kid is like that. Not every kid is like that for sure. But if you can establish a place where you can remove the excess and then have a system for getting it out of your house, whether you put
Mhm.
a reminder on your calendar or whatever.
Mhm.
For me, when that bag fills up, I then put it in my husband's trunk, and then it probably sits there for a month or so, and then he'll take
Mhm.
it to
Yeah.
whatever donation place he's close to, really.
Mhm.
And that just works for us. But
Yeah.
it's a continual process of removing
Yes.
excess things. And it does help you to make better decisions going forward when you start to see all the things that can go. You go, do I
Yes.
really need that? Or is that going to end up
Right. Yeah.
at Hangers of Hope down the road?
Mhm.
Um, and then I think I would just say, take just a minute to think about what you want your kids to remember
Mm.
about their childhood and about
Yeah.
growing up in your home. How do you want them to talk about it when they
Mhm.
are 20 or 25 years old? What was it
Mm.
like to grow up in your home? What were your parents like? That can be very sobering to
Yeah.
think about what my young adult children will
Yeah.
say about life with us. And I
Mhm.
want them to say that we were well loved, that our
Yes.
parents modeled Christ to us, that we had people in our home all the time, that, my friends were welcome and all that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that that will be the case with all of them, but
Yeah.
having that goal of like, okay,
Yeah.
big picture, what do I want my kids to remember on my home? It's not so much about did they have a Pottery Barn bedspread or
Mhm.
the
Yes.
trendiest wallpaper in their room. It's
Uh-huh.
how did they feel in your
Yeah.
home? How did you make other
Yeah.
people feel when they came into your home?
Wow. Wow, that's yeah, such a good reminder. I remember a youth pastor who had us sounds kind of morbid, but kind of walk through a graveyard one time and like look at the epitaphs, the what
Mm,
was written on the headstones, and a lot of times it would say just the date of birth and death, or it might say,
mhm,
wife, mother, something very simple, but
mhm.
so many of our accolades, they end when we do. And so what we
Right.
have is, our children are eternal, our souls are
Mhm,
eternal. And so
mhm.
being like, is what I'm doing bringing more things and people into eternity? Is what I'm doing sowing into these eternal beings? Or like you
Yes.
said, is it just that bedspread I really want because I saw it on my friend's
Right.
Instagram, that may be
Right.
nice for a season and it's not bad to want it, but it's not gonna be what they remember. And
Right.
yeah.
Keep it in
So
perspective. Yeah, it's all
yeah.
about the relationship, and that is the hard part too, is relationships are messy and they can ebb and
Yes.
flow, but when you know, okay, that's the real goal here is
Mhm.
loving my spouse and loving my kids well, and like you said, pointing them to eternity and knowing that that's the
Yes.
impact that you have, I think can help some of the smaller things and details fall off.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, well, it's been just such a pleasure to have you here, Robin. And
Oh, thank you.
yes, I just hope our listeners have been as blessed by this time as I have, and look forward to the next time that we can connect.
Same. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Yes. Thank you. This is not medical advice and is for general, educational, and informational purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listeners are advised to always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding any medical condition or treatment plan. This information is for personal use only. Rather than asking you to comment or subscribe, we want to encourage you to share our channel with others if you found this helpful. We are committed to nurturing face-to-face relationships and encourage you to be known and seen by those in your world.